Greetings to all of Donna Independent School District. My name is Fernando Castillo, here with Donna ISD, and with me I've got Mr. Raul Torres, the Director of Child Nutrition Program for Donna Independent School District. And what we're going to be discussing with you today is the process of what is known as point of service, which specifically will be for every single teacher of record for Donna Independent School District, grades pre-K through 12. And obviously we're looking at close to 15,000 students that we're dealing with on a daily basis, and we're referring to the breakfast in the classroom, the lunch, and of course the after-school snacks. Why don't we talk a little bit about what is it that we're really looking at when we talk about the point of service, the key thing that we want our teachers to really focus on?
Well, we want the teachers of record to recognize that they are going to get two ice chests. One of them is for the cool items, and the other one is for the warm items. And if the students get one item from each of those ice chests, that is a good reimbursable meal. So that's what we're looking for, to make sure that the teachers are recognizing that point of service, that they see the student grab one item from the ice chest that have the cold items and one from the ice chest that has the warm items. And you can go ahead and check on the rosters that they did get their food breakfast.
Okay, and Mr. Torres, help me understand. Obviously, it's fully aware that we do have a electronic system which we refer to as Teams, and that is live data, which means that the student is there with his or her teacher of record. So if I've got 22 students on there, then all 22 students will be there with the ID and so forth. When we talk about the three symbols that are the only three symbols that are allowable in there, we're talking about the check, we're talking about the X, and we're talking about the A for absence. So tell us a little bit about what each one entails and when should they be using this. The point of service you discussed right now obviously is very critical because the teacher has to visualize that they took the item. So tell us about those three symbols.
Sure. The check mark signifies that the student did get the full breakfast. Okay. The X is when the student receives only one item from the breakfast ice chest. You put an X.
What about if they just refuse totally? With the same thing?
If they refuse, they go ahead and put an X on the rosters. Okay. The A, the only time that you're going to select the A is when the student is absent. Okay.
And then teachers are saying, well, my student is in school suspension or AC, or my student is with another teacher or on a field trip. What is your response?
Well, if the student is out on a field trip or in the DAEP, the teacher of record should record it as an A because the student is not physically in that classroom to receive the breakfast.
Okay. So to make it real simple, we need to go, is that person, that student, physically there? And if the answer is no, regardless, they're not there. So that's when we put the A, no matter where the student's at. So is that safe to say?
Absolutely.
Okay,
that is
good,
correct.
Good. Now, Mr. Torres, when it comes down to the rosters, we have the rosters and they're all electronic. They're computerized. Does the teacher have to have that roster right there with the computer, or can he or she have a printout with them, still conducting the point of service, and then go back into the computer and post it?
That's correct. If the teacher can do point of service two ways, electronically at the point of service with a screen on and the roster is right there on the screen, they can go ahead and do the point of service in that manner, or they can also print the roster and they can have it on top of their desk, and as they see the student receiving the breakfast, they can go ahead and mark it, and then at the end of the morning, at the end of the breakfast period, they can go back and transfer that data into their rosters.
Okay. And we want to be certain to emphasize that the point of service is going to be taking place with the teacher of record, obviously. Mr. Torres, a couple of questions that may come about as well. Let's say a student is absent, and we know that for a fact. So there's 22 students in that class, 2 students are absent. So that means that 20 students took all their breakfast and everything. There were 20 checks. Obviously, we're going to have 2 A's because they're absent.
That's correct.
Now, a student in there asked the teacher that they would like to have the breakfast, since there's 2 students that are absent, can they pick that up? Is that permissible?
That is not allowable. If the students are absent, their breakfast should remain in the ice chest. The students are only allowed to only get one breakfast in that morning.
So in other words, only the student himself or herself physically there has to go through the point of service, and only then will he or she be able to share their portion with anybody else.
Exactly. The teacher at no point can distribute that breakfast from that student that is absent to another student. It has to be from the student to student.
Miss Cruz, can I have Edmund's breakfast? Sure, go ahead. Whatever's in.
What would be the proper procedure if a student is present but does not want to eat that breakfast, yet one of his buddies or her buddies in there would like to share that? What is the proper procedure to do that and still make it official?
If the students wants another breakfast and their friend goes and picks up their own breakfast and the teacher records it in the roster, at that time the student can either eat the breakfast or they can go ahead and pass it on to a friend that wants the breakfast. That is allowable.
Miss Cruz, can I have Edmund's breakfast?
Only Esmer can get her breakfast, so the point of service is done correctly.
What happens to that food that's left over? Because, for example, at a campus as big as a high school, you might have 250 teachers. At a smaller elementary, you might have 25 teachers. Nevertheless, there may be one or two students who refuse or was absent, and at the end of the day, all that food accumulates.
The food that remains in the ice chest, in the cool ice chest, in the cold ice chest, and in the warm ice chest, that food needs to remain in those ice chests. The teachers or any other student are not allowed to get any of that food.
Now, we need to go through every scenario possible, and in scenarios that we wish we had all teachers with perfect attendance, but unfortunately there may be an occasion where a teacher has to be out for unforeseen reasons or for staff development regardless.
Right.
What is the process that we do? Does the teacher have the capability to leave a roster for the substitute and official rosters through Teams? Can they download that? Because it sure would be good. Is that what's the procedure for that?
What is in place and should take place is that the substitute teacher, in this case, will have a roster already to go ahead and do point of service. At the end of the morning, this individual, the substitute teacher, will submit it to campus administration so they can go ahead and input that into Teams, because obviously the substitute teacher do not have access to the teacher's Teams account. Therefore, they do it through the paper manual format and then give it on to the administration of the campus. So they in turn will go ahead and post them for the teacher.
Okay, good. And all that obviously can take place in that same day.
Yes.
Right? That's what we want. Another thing that I've got, Mr. Torres, has been brought up, and I know that district-wide we do have what we refer to as the extracurricular teachers, the band instructors, the athletic coaches, both male, female, on both the departments. Sometimes they do not have a classroom that lends itself. What do we do in cases like that? Can they also take their roster, print their roster from the teams? And of course, we're talking about the teacher of record here. Most of them sometimes gather their classes in the cafeteria. Is that possible for them to do that as well? And then they go back to the computer and post ASAP, or what do we have in place?
Yes, the coach or the band director or music teacher, when the period of breakfast comes, they are the ones responsible in printing those rosters so they can go ahead and do point of service. As the coaches are outside, obviously they need to have a record, a report of the students' roster so they can do points of service during that time. And then later on, they can go ahead and submit that information into Teams within the appropriate time.
What happens when a teacher claims or brings it to the attention of the food service department at their campus level that they were short? Is that possible?
There is a possibility for unforeseen circumstances, but when that happens, it is very important that the teacher of record reports it immediately to the cafeteria staff so they can go ahead and get their right amount of breakfast if they are short 1 or 2 breakfasts.
What we really want to stress upon each and every one of you as a teacher is the process. And so what we have done is you're going to be able to see 2 videos done here with the teacher of Donna ISD. And the first video is going to entail the procedure of what we do not want you to be doing in the classroom. Again, that is the video is going to be displaying to you the things that we do not want to see a teacher do in the classroom. And then after that, you'll see a video that we are referring to as that is the procedure that we want every single teacher to go through.
This is the incorrect way to conduct the point of service. Notice that the teacher is not even in the classroom. Students have walked into the room. They are going into the unattended ice chests. They are getting breakfast as they please, as many as they want, and the teacher is not cognizant of what is going on at the point of service. The teacher even comes back inside and still remains very unaware of the point of service and the breakfast in the classroom proper procedures. Students even go into the ice chest, tossing breakfast around, behavior that is not acceptable during breakfast in the classroom point of service.
I don't know, whatever's there. Some people must have taken extras.
Because the teacher did not conduct the point of service properly, some students may be left without a breakfast. Without the point of service being conducted correctly, the teacher relies on a show of hands to determine who accepted and rejected their breakfast.
Who got their breakfast? I need to post my breakfast roster.
I didn't get breakfast.
Okay, who got it? You didn't? Okay. Okay.
These procedures are not the acceptable way to conduct the point of service.
Second video is a video that displays the actions that we want them to do, the proper procedure, the point of service, and again, where the teacher of record is physically there seeing and checking off whether they took the items as they go by there. That's basically in a nutshell the point of service that we want.
Here, the point of service is being conducted properly. The teacher has had her door, and the ice chests are right next to the door, so she has full control over the breakfast and what is happening with her students. Her students are walking in, and they know the procedure, so they're taking a seat and they're waiting for the teacher to make the call when breakfast will be served. With full management of breakfast in the classroom, the teacher then chooses when the ice chests are opened, where they are placed, and put in a place where students can access them, and she can also view the point of service. Whether you call your students up one at a time or one row at a time, the key is that you have a clear visual of when each student is accepting or rejecting their breakfast. You can also make the proper documentation as each student passes through the point of service line. With that visual, you can also view what the student takes, whether or not they accept the full breakfast or only take a partial, which would result in an X on your documentation. Here, the teacher is using a printed out roster to take her breakfast in the classroom documentation at the point of service. With that clear visual, the teacher may put a check, an X, or an A as it pertains to each student's decision on breakfast next to his or her name. The teacher may also use a laptop or a desktop depending on the location of the computer. As long as the point of service is being conducted properly, the teacher can input the documentation directly into the computer. As you can see, when the point of service is conducted properly and the breakfast in the classroom procedures are followed, every student present is assured the opportunity to receive a breakfast, and the whole procedure should take less than 5 minutes.
And this is to take place every single day. As Mr. Torres mentioned earlier, everyone's going to have 2 ice chests. Every single teacher will have that, and on those 2 items, you will have those foods in there. The liquid, which is the drinks, juice or milk, and of course the food on the other one. We don't want to give more paperwork to you, the individual teacher, but by the same token, we appreciate that everything you do for us, because keep in mind, I keep using the word point of service, or the words point of service, and that's critical. Regardless of when school begins and when it ends, we need to consider that is a very detrimental process of our day in terms of administrative paperwork, and only you, the teacher of record, can do that. Mr. Torres, I would like for you to give our audience your phone number. Where can they reach you if they have any questions?
Yes, they can reach us at our office at 956-464-1815.
Okay, well, Mr. Torres, we certainly appreciate all the important information you conveyed to us from your department, and to you, Donna Independent School District faculty and teachers of record. We appreciate everything you do for our students, and as we say, healthy mind, healthy body equals academic success. And our child nutrition program definitely brings this to you on a daily basis, not only for breakfast, but for lunch and also for the after-school snacks. Again, we thank you for everything you've done for us. Mr. Torres.
Thank you very much, and we appreciate your attention to this important matter.